Hey, Econ, Besme here. And what if 50% of all life on Earth simply ceased to exist? The snap, as seen in Avengers Infinity War, killed 50% of all living beings in the universe. While the movie did a good job highlighting the emotional impact such an event would have on the general populace, it failed to address the multitude of other economic, social, and political problems if a similar event occurred in real life. In this video, we intend to answer the question of what would happen if all life in the world suddenly ceased to exist. Minutes after the snap, the more immediate effects would bear their teeth. Cars with no drivers would veer into other drivers on the road, a quarter of planes with two pilots would fall from the sky, and those in need of medical attention may find it near impossible to access the care they need. The immediate effects alone would add substantially to the already over 3.8 billion people dead. With such a large decrease in population in such a short amount of time, a multitude of economic problems would arise. The first I'll touch on is the snap's impact on the production of food, materials, and transportation, and its connection to the well-being of the remaining humans. To talk about this, I will specifically focus on the US. So, assuming that the population of the US is halved from its previously nearly 329 million people, this would leave about 165 million people in the US, of which about 37 million are children under 18, and many more who are either unable to work or simply don't want to. To paint a clearer picture of what can be expected from such an event, we'll use the Spanish flu as a reference. The Spanish flu hit the world in the year 1918, killing 50 million worldwide and over 675,000 in the US. Using the trends and events seen during the flu, we can extrapolate the likely effects of the snap. The widespread and fast-spreading nature of the flu caused many industries to have a lack of workers. One example being the Tennessee and Kentucky mines, which were on the brink of complete shutdown due to the absence of able-bodied workers. Now, keep in mind, in many cases, the workers would recover from the flu and return to work. In the case of the snap, however, the loss of workers is far more devastating. Industries such as food production would greatly suffer, as less than 1% of the remaining population would be responsible for it. Living in a society dependent on the transportation of goods to the remaining 99%, and having the distribution of said goods come to a standstill, the survivors would suffer from a food shortage and a lack of important supplies such as medication. This would mean that sufferers of chronic illnesses with no access to their medication may get sick and even die. The people of the population suffer not only from the lack of workers, but also from the psychological impacts the snap would have. Imagine having dinner with your family and having a jolly old time, and then boom, they're dust. Or, you're playing Call of Duty with your friend, and all of a sudden, he turns into a pile of dust beside you. With some workers' families completely wiped out, coupled with the shock of seeing their loved ones simply disappear before their eyes, even productivity amongst the survivors would be hindered. But what about the government? What impact would the snap have on the functioning of the government? Well, with such a large decrease in the population, the most obvious effect would be the decreased tax base and its impact on federal spending. Federal tax dollars are used to bolster the strength of the military, provide healthcare, and take care of those who are unable to work or are retired. A decrease in federal tax dollars would not only mean that the government would not be able to properly support the people, but also that the people, being unhappy with the government's performance, are more likely to oppose the government and create chaos in an already chaotic society. In regards to the many industries present in the post-snap world, some would struggle more than others. Take small businesses, for example. The small shops have neither the manpower nor the resources to keep their doors open for very long, and would quickly be done in by the utter lack of cash flow. Amongst these stores may be tool shops, grocery stores, etc., which are needed for the sustainability of the remaining populace. Now, this may all sound quite horrible, but even when the previously snap people were brought back by the Hulk in Avengers Endgame, humanity isn't quite out of the woods yet.
Well, you see, in Avengers Endgame, Hulk snaps all of the previously dusted heroes back to life. And if this were to happen in our world, well, to say the least, the effects would be interesting. For one, obviously people would be elated to see their families brought back. But seeing as in the movie 5 years have passed between the snap and the snap back, many people may have moved on and sold their houses, gave up their wills, and donated a lot of their life away, believing they had lost their loved ones forever. But while you may believe that the sudden influx of people returning may serve to hurt the economy, as the demands of the return would far outweigh supply left on Earth, we believe that the truth would be far from that. Take the baby boom, for example, which occurred post-World War II, when adults across the globe felt as if they could take on more children in their lives. In this 18-year period between 1946 and 1964, 77 million babies were born solely in the United States, which at the time made up close to 40% of the population. Now, at this point, there was uncertainty over what would happen to the economy, as so many people were being born at such a torrid pace. So Dwight D. Eisenhower was tasked with a rather monumental problem. How he decided to combat it was to provide more housing, more schools, and in general, more resources to these growing boomers, and in turn, the US reaped the benefits. The demand for baby products was astronomically high. Schools, both public and private, were being funded by these teenager boomers, and the economy was prospering because of the whole new country of young people who were spending their dollar bills. Now, obviously, this 18-year period is a little different than the 1 second in which the snapback occurs, but the point to extrapolate remains. An influx of people wouldn't tarnish the economy, as many of us are led to believe. In fact, it would probably help it. There would obviously be an adjustment period of maybe 6 months to a year for developed countries, and maybe longer for developing ones, but in general, the world's economy would probably be back to standard levels soon enough.
Ultimately stabilizing each country and their affairs, which is why we need to talk about the government. It's nice to look at these hypotheticals and wonder what would happen, but if it really did, what could our US government do to fix it? For this scenario, let's assume that after half the population was snapped away, our economy entered a recession due to the decreased tax base and a decrease in the workforce. Taking a look at the material we covered this year, there are two ways to combat a recession: monetary policy and fiscal policy. According to Keynesian economics, a healthy economy can be maintained through consumer and business spending. To increase these numbers, the government can either reduce tax rates or increase their spending. We already ruled out increased spending, so the most plausible solution would be to tax less. This could be achieved in two ways: a discretionary fiscal policy or a non-discretionary fiscal policy. Given the urgency of the state of the country, a discretionary fiscal policy would be the best approach, since it would effectively be enacted as soon as Congress passes it. Let's compare this to the monetary policy. Technically, monetary policy isn't related to the government since they operate on their own accord, but they still deal with keeping the economy stable. Continuing with the recession scenario, the Federal Reserve Bank could approach this problem in three ways. First, the discount rate. They would need to decrease the discount rate so that interest rates are lower, increasing the money in circulation. Second, they can lower the reserve requirement so that banks hold less money and instead circulate that money through the consumers. Lastly, they could buy bonds to put more money in circulation. Evidently, our government is prepared for changes in our economy with multiple solutions, even to the most extreme situations.
Hey guys, so I know that this video gets exponentially worse as it goes, but that's all I got. Running on half a can of Starbucks double shot energy. So yeah, okay, bye.